Welcome to today's episode of PolicyCast. In this episode, we delve into one of the most critical areas for multinational businesses operating in India, that is transfer pricing, dispute avoidance, and resolution. To help us unpack this evolving landscape, we are joined by Deepak Ranka, who brings deep insights on advanced pricing agreements, APAs, and safe harbor regime in India. Welcome, Deepak.
Good afternoon, Karishma. Pleasure to speak to you.
So quickly to start with the first question to you, Deepak, we seem to be at a particularly interesting phase in India's TP journey right now. On one hand, the
hmm
new Income Tax Act 2025 expands the tax base, be it through a broader scope or more granular disclosure requirements. At the same time, there's a very visible push by the CBDT towards certainty and dispute avoidance. Drawing from
hmm
your experience, how do you see this phase shaping up for taxpayers?
Sure. So, uh, as you see the Income Tax Act 2025, it clearly signals an important transition in the India transfer pricing regime. I'm sure there will be certain transition related questions. It's inevitable. Any change, questions are
Mhm.
bound to be there. But what
Yes.
really stands out is that as the tax framework evolves and expands, it is being consciously balanced by a much stronger emphasis on dispute avoidance mechanism. Take an example, the broadened associate enterprise definition which has been brought in, enhanced disclosures which are needed in Form 48. What does it signify? It signifies greater transparency and wider coverage. And considering that these are early days, I'm sure it will throw up some interpretational questions. There will be certain teething issues, but particularly in complex, group structures.
Mhm.
On the flip side, to better manage this, what is it that we have? The CBDT has clearly strengthened advanced certainty frameworks. The expanded safe harbor rules now offer a quicker, more standardized path to certainty for eligible taxpayers, which is there already in place in developed economies like US and Europe. And at the
Mhm.
same time, what it also provides is India APA program, which has matured over the last decade or so into a robust mechanism for addressing more complex, more high value transfer pricing issues upfront. So overall, issues on the transition side are unavoidable. It's inevitable. It's going to be there.
Mhm.
However, on the direction side, it's pretty clear. The policy compass is firmly pointing towards certainty first and litigation last. And with APAs and now the unified safe harbor provisions playing a central role in that shift.
That's interesting, Deepak. So, if we quickly start with the safe harbor rules, historically, many taxpayers actually viewed the safe harbor as a very narrow or maybe somewhat restrictive option. Do you think that the recent reforms have fundamentally changed how safe harbor should be perceived today by taxpayers?
Absolutely, absolutely. No two thoughts about it.
Hmm.
More or less, it was around the same time that the safe harbor and APA provisions were brought in. It was somewhere around 2012, 2013. However, the recent safe harbor reforms are not incremental tweaks, they are structural changes. The consolidation of multiple technology services into a single IT services category, rationalization of markups, and most importantly, higher eligibility thresholds. You know, it's a game changer. And to top it all, the cherry on the cake is the more automated system-driven process have materially aligned safe harbor from a tax-friendly environment perspective. Earlier, safe harbor was not necessarily the first option that came to the mind of be the taxpayers or the consultancy firms. Today, it has moved much closer to business reality, especially for scale driven sectors like IT and ITS, making it a viable and attractive option for upfront certainty. And like it was mentioned as part of the speech given by the finance minister and thereafter clarification by the CBDT, with the unified safe harbor coming in, they believe 95% of the GCCs can get covered under that. So, what more can we ask?
That's great. Yes. But also, it being beyond faster and a lower cost option, do you think that the safe harbor today reflects a deliberate policy shift towards upfront certainty? How should taxpayers evaluate safe harbor alongside APAs rather than viewing it as a secondary or a fallback option?
So, I would say there's a very clear distinction, an important one between the two. Safe Harbor was never intended, to compete with APAs. They were designed to be complementary. Like I mentioned previously, Safe Harbor works best where business models are stable, margins are predictable, and the priority is quick certainty with minimal administrative effort. On the flip side, or on, as a complementary basis, APAs on the other hand are better suited for complex, high value, or globally sensitive transactions. If you look at them as different tools in the same toolkit rather than mutually exclusive option, decision making becomes far more strategic.
That sounds very interesting and exciting. It sounds like Safe Harbor addresses one layer of certainty, and APA builds on that framework by dealing with more complex and probably more high value situations. Interestingly,
Yep.
India introduced the APA program back in 2012, like you mentioned. But what we are seeing today, it's far different. The momentum has really caught on. So, what has really changed in the recent years that it's giving us the image that we are seeing today?
So, 2012, the thought behind bringing APAs was to address the high intensity with which litigation was happening in India on the transfer pricing side. And prima facie, the litigation was revolving around three bits, I would say, three parts. One was the margins, one was the comparables, and third was characterization of the taxpayer. Now, what has changed is the scale, the confidence, and capability. India today has 5 dedicated APA teams across locations, a far more structured FTNTR framework, and strong global credibility. Business now view APAs not just as a tax tool, but as a business certainty tool, almost like locking in the rules of the game upfront, offering outcomes secured for up to 9 years through rollback provisions.
Interesting, Deepak. And as you rightly pointed out, the TP disputes initially were quite a pain point for a lot of the MNEs operating in India. But also now the numbers that are coming out of the APA program are striking. We have over 1,000 APAs concluded, and with financial year 25-26 being a record year for the APA program. From your perspective, what do these numbers tell us about the maturity of the program?
So the numbers tell a very compelling story, and if you permit me to throw some numbers, first the pace with which it's been getting close.
Mhm.
We always thought 2025 year end, March 2025 was the landmark year because we had close to 174 APAs that were closed that year. Come 2026, the numbers have increased by 25%. We had close to 219 APAs that were signed in a
That's a
single year.
significant jump. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And earlier, until sometime back, bilateral APS was not something which was pursued so, aggressively. And the focus was always on the unilateral side. Now, if you see the numbers the way it is, unilateral APS still dominate in the overall scheme of things. However, the bilateral APAs that have been signed, the number of APAs under bilateral regime that has been signed has risen sharply. This year alone, we had close to 84 bilateral APAs that were signed, as compared to 65 in the previous year. If you see, it's close to a 25-30% increase in the number of bilaterals getting signed. And who are the participating countries? It is the same US, UK, Japan, and Singapore, majorly.
That's interesting, Deepak. And you mentioned about bilateral APAs and unilateral APAs when you were mentioning the stats. Clients often ask a very practical question that should we go for a unilateral APA or a bilateral one? How should businesses think about this decision?
I would say it's a comparative between risk and speed. You know, the
Hmm.
stats speak for itself. Unilateral APAs has typically been faster, concluded within, anywhere between 30 to 36 months, and works specifically well where the foreign jurisdiction has low audit risk. It's
Okay.
efficient and India
Hmm.
focused. That's the mantra. Just to add further, you know, in the Finance Bill 2026, which has become an act now, it has been further strengthened and streamlined to reduce this 30-36 months period to 24 months for taxpayers, specifically in the IT sector. In comparison, a bilateral APA, on the other hand, takes longer time frame to close, and the time period ranges anywhere between 36 to 42 months. However, what it gives you protection is from double taxation. I often say, unilateral APA is a local insurance and bilateral APA is a global coverage. If the overseas entity is under audit pressure or margins are tight globally, bilateral APA is usually worth the extra effort.
So risk versus the speed is what you rightly put it as initially. Yes. So one of the features that is consistently highlighted about the Indian APA program is the flexibility. How does this level of procedural flexibility help when compared with other jurisdictions like US, Canada, or Australia?
I think flexibility is, probably the most appreciated feature of the India APA regime. Taxpayers have an option of converting a unilateral into a bilateral one at transactions post filing of the application, etc. All of this is possible until the APA reaches conclusion, finality, signing. The taxpayer has the option of going back and request for these changes. The fact that adaptability recognizes the business dynamics, that it is not static, it gives taxpayers room to course correct, something that is not always available in more rigid APA regimes globally.
So the flexibility that you mentioned about, Deepak, I think that would be very well appreciated by taxpayers in India. But on the flip side, are there any practical refinements that could be considered to further enhance predictability and efficiency of the APA program in India?
Very rightly, raised as a point, Karishma. I believe one area that still needs attention is consistency in approach across different APA teams. Like I mentioned, there are 5 of them. So, where similar fact patterns have sometimes led to divergent outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, talking about APA renewals. While we do have a newer form recently notified for renewal cases, also having a simplified APA renewal procedure, which is typically followed, say, in US or the European region, if something similar can be adopted in India, it would save time and administrative effort, both at the taxpayer side as well as at the FTNTR/APA team side. A larger digital shift, beyond just e-filing of compliance reports, could also improve efficiency and transparency. Lastly, and most important, I would say, involvement of subject matter experts in complex cases. Some of them could be, royalty, management fees, IP related, etc. This is a feature which is already there in most of the mature jurisdictions. I believe if this is brought in the India APA framework, it would further strengthen technical outcomes. Together, these refinements could meaningfully enhance predictability while preserving the strengths of the current program.
Great, that's very insightful, Deepak. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on how Safe Harbour rules and APAs are shaping India's transfer pricing dispute avoidance framework. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. See you in the next episode.